Dan Vowles here from InformedChristians.com, a website ministry devoted to discerning current events from a Christian perspective. Today we're going to have just a quick update of what's on the radar and what is going on right now. Your Watchman reports on events, and I'm just handing over the information to you. No predictions are made. This is just a watch. Again, I'm just showing you what is going on right now. And from looking at what's going on right now, we should be concerned. As we looked at in our last radar update, the enemy has been very busy just in this month alone with a lot of media programming and announcements pointing toward that they're looking for an awakening from the underground pretty soon. And a lot of it has looked like it has been pointing toward the time of Halloween. And Halloween is known as the worship of Cernunnos, the horned god of the underworld, also known as Hades, Pan, Satan, goes by different names. So the enemy activity has been off the charts, and there's other events I could have covered, but I didn't in our last video, all pointing toward this time when the Day of the Dead and the underworld is celebrated. So we are on guard and watching for enemy activity. That is what we are expecting, because it looks like they are trying to do something any day now, and it looks like they have been preparing for quite a while for this time period. So we are definitely on watch, and we need to be sober and vigilant and prayerful during this time, because the enemy is very busy. We also looked at in our last video of the celestial signs that are going on at this exact same time period, which also brings us to remember other significant, and it links to other significant celestial signs that we've seen too, particularly the Star of David, the blood moons, and then we're also having what I call the Star of Bethlehem echo reminder going on right now. Well, Halloween isn't the only Day of the Dead, and a lot of people think, well, okay, Halloween's over, they missed the boat, they canceled the show, nothing happened. Well, a lot did happen on Halloween, and it's right now we're still in the middle of the thick of what you could call the Days of the Dead. It's not just limited to one day. There's several major events during this time throughout the world that are all based on the same thing. Major holidays. Halloween was one, Samhain, Day of the Dead, Day 1, Day of the Dead, Day 2, All Souls Day. They're all come from the same source and a lot of the same practices. And they all celebrate Days of the Dead in the underworld. Very rich in enemy activity, and a lot of what we've seen before, again, is pointing toward this time when we are expecting the enemy to try something. And we've also seen the celestial signs. Now, these Days of the Dead, it's interesting, coincides exactly right at the same time with the anniversary of the flood starting. Now, we had been watching during that particular time of between Noah entering the ark, the anniversary of that, and the flood starting. We're definitely looking at that time for prophetic events, and I would still say they're in effect because of everything else we see in this area, that this time period, this season we find ourselves in, has a lot pointing to it, and we definitely need to be vigilant and not let our guard down during this time period. But it's interesting that the Day of the Dead follows immediately after the anniversary of the flood. And what happened at the flood? God destroyed the wickedness, which included a lot of the Satan's intermarrying and interbreeding with mankind before the flood. That's talked about in Genesis. Job 26:5 tells us, dead things are formed from under the waters, and the inhabitants thereof. And that first word is very interesting, because in the Hebrew it's Rapha, which means ghost. The demons, the unclean spirits, all those are the souls of Satan's creatures and half-mixed, half-breeds from before the flood. They died in the flood, but their souls became the demons, which is interesting because what is celebrated at Halloween? The Days of the Dead and the souls and contacting the underworld. Halloween and the Days of the Dead celebrate and memorialize Satan's troops and disciples that were lost and killed during the Great Flood. It's nothing Christians should have any part of at all. None of these events. So now we find a lot of programming pointing toward the same time that Satan is going to be trying something to avenge what has happened. What is he trying to do with CERN? He's trying to crack open the pit, release the fallen angels to avenge. And that's what the whole programming with the Avengers is. It's the fallen angels, the demigods, the people with supernatural powers, them coming back to avenge what happened at the flood. That's why this day is so important, and it looks like they're going to be trying something in this time period. So we need to definitely still keep an eye open. But we also see, when we keep our eyes open, that there's some very important celestial signs going on at the exact same moment. We talked about the Star of Bethlehem echo, which was strongest on the 26th, when Jupiter and Venus were practically next to each other, creating a very bright point in the sky, which reminded and echoed the Star of Bethlehem, especially the one we saw earlier this year. But then we can see it continues all the way up through November 3rd. It continues through this same time period. So we have Satan doing things to commemorate what's going on underground, down in the underworld, the days of the dead. But then in the heavens, in the skies, we see God also drawing our attention that, hey, we need to be paying attention. We need to be sober. We need to be vigilant. Something is going on. So we need to pay attention. Earlier, the 2015 The Economist cover has a lot of symbolism in it that may be pertinent to this time, particularly the end of the Rugby Cup, 50th Jubilee, a bunch of other things. And the overwhelming message with this and a lot of other programming that we've covered in the other videos is take shelter, not the turtle there, take shelter because war is about to break loose. I'm going to point out two interesting things on the cover here. There's a very strong reference that it implies they're going to try something during the holy days. And that's not necessarily a reference to the Jewish holidays or the holy days, but to Satan's holy days, particularly the ones associated with ghosts, the Rapha, the unclean spirits, which is Halloween, the Days of the Dead, Samhain, all of that, All Souls Day, all of that. So it looks like they're broadcasting something is going to happen or they're going to try something in this time period. So we need to be vigilant. Then also there's two interesting arrows. Some have speculated on what those numbers mean. It's hard to believe that they would put it out so blatantly as dates, but without anything else, we have to look at that as that of what they are aiming for. But it is interesting that we find that coinciding with what we're studying right now, because we see if we take them at straight value of dates, the 11th month, the third day, that would be November 3rd, which is right after, immediately after that, but then also the 5th. So are they sending a signal that they're aiming for this time period right around here? And they're not quite on the mark? Because Satan doesn't know the day or the hour that Christ is coming back. Nobody does. But it looks like Satan is about to try something in this time frame. So we need to watch for that. And keep in mind that the celestial signs are also telling us that we should expect action from above too as well. So what should we be doing? Romans 13:11-12, knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than we believe. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. During these days, especially the days of the dead, have nothing to do with Halloween or anything that has to do with demons, ghosts, or anything even vaguely connected to that. You are a soldier of light. Put on the armor of light. Cast off anything to do with Satan's celebrations. He is your enemy. He hates God. He hates you. And he wants to avenge what God did to him many years ago. That's what this whole time of year is about. Have nothing to do with that. It would be a shame, very foolish if Christ came back during this time and found you holding hands and sitting at Satan's table enjoying some of the theme of what he uses to celebrate his events. Cast it off. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Ask God for wisdom of what you should be doing, things in your life that you need to cast off, and then wisdom of how you can put on the armor of light. Maranatha.